Hey guys, how it's going? Is it good morning or good evening or whatever? I see that we have like 8 viewers at the moment. It was 10 a few minutes ago, so it's actually more than I expected for today. So it's good. Please write in the comments if the audio is good, video is good, everything is good, and we can start talking about some monitoring stuff. And you know what? This probably should be good. And also, like the last time when we talked, I think it was like 3 weeks ago, maybe 3.5, something like that. So, which was before of the release of the Zabbix 6.0, and yeah, so 6.0 is already here for a while, and today I think was released the RC3 version. So we're still waiting for 6.01, which will also fix some bugs that came unnoticed in the stable release. Sorry, I will be coughing probably a little bit. I'm a bit sick here, but it's gonna be fine. So, how is going with the Zabbix 6.0? Or have you already upgraded, tried it in a dev or whatever? Probably like this release, the 6.0, is not such a big surprise, right? Because it was delayed multiple times, and everybody had a chance to play around with the beta and alpha and release candidates and try out all the new functionality. So everybody were more or less ready for what's inside. And yeah, I see the comments that everything is good. Hi, good evening from Netherlands. Everything is good. Hope you're doing good as well. Yeah, everything is fine here. Yeah, I don't have a virtual machine today because I don't actually expect that we'll be doing some, I don't know, clicking in the console. As you notice, the topic, which is implementing Zabbix in a company and Q&A session. So I'm mostly targeted on the Q&A. The more questions you give me in the comments, the easier it actually is to me. But we'll of course talk about some things that I think might be important for somebody who's actually thinking to deploy, maybe not even a Zabbix, deploy any monitoring solution in their company from the scratch, and what potential problems that could cause. I know I have actually written down a few points to talk about, and I guess I can bring it on a screen because anyways there's not too much interesting things to show right now. And I guess we can start, and yeah, like at any moment, if you have any questions about whatever, about monitoring or Zabbix or anything else, you can of course write them in the chat, and I will try to help you. And there's the first question, so let's try to answer it before actually starting to talk about implementation. So how to import a Zabbix 5.4 database, do 6.0. I think you're talking about the upgrade. So I've actually have an upgrade video already ready, and it's scheduled for the next Monday. But in general, nothing has changed as per any other versions of the Zabbix. So you can just open documentation, and there will be configuration, no installation. Should be some upgrade procedures. So there we go. If it's from the packages, there's basically a copy-paste list of the commands that you need to follow to upgrade your 5.4 version to the 6.0. The only difference here is the Zabbix 6.0 changed the supported operating systems and also the databases, and most of existing installations fall under this requirement. But if you have a Zabbix 5.4, then most likely you were running some supported operating system. Is it best to do an in-place upgrade or build a new instance and migrate the data over? Again, this absolutely depends on your current operating system and your database, mostly the operating system. If you're running, let's say, CentOS 7 and CentOS 8, anyways, there's no way to do in-place upgrade because Zabbix 6.0 doesn't support these versions anymore. So it's going to be a fresh server with my preference, personal preference. No, I'm not forcing or saying that it's the best. I personally prefer the Oracle Linux 8. And yeah, then just move your database, potentially upgrade also the database, and then perform the upgrade and start live on new server. And again, I have this upgrade video scheduled for the Monday, 12 p.m. GMT +2. But just subscribe, click that bell button, and you'll get a notification when it's out. And I do have 2 videos about preparing for an upgrade, about operating systems and also the databases. So that's about it. Thanks. I'm using Ubuntu 24 and a Docker container. Yeah, with the Docker, it's way easier. But again, Docker is not... it is a good thing. I use it myself, but it's not very popular across all of the Zabbix installations. There are some users and companies using a Docker, but if engineers don't have the required skills, it might just cause additional problems and some complexity, which is of course not good. Okay, so yeah, let's start with these things that we have as a topic for today. So implementing Zabbix in a company, and I'll talk for a few minutes and then we'll get back to the questions. So why do we need monitoring at all? And this might be a question depending on like where you're actually located, or if we're not talking about you, but about implementing monitoring in general. It heavily depends on the size of the company and also the location of the company, because like the country where I am from, which is Latvia, Riga, headquarters of the Zabbix, actually the scale of average company is pretty small. I don't want to guess, and I don't want to be wrong, but I think it's probably like around like 50, 100 employees with just one small internal data center, which does not even have these data center policies, and they have a couple of servers and then just workstations, maybe some 5 or 10 network devices, and that's it. And if we talk about the local scale, then many of these companies don't even have monitoring at all. They're strictly relying on everything just like as it was tens years ago. So if something breaks, then most likely somebody will call us, right, and say that, hey, your web page is not working, or I don't know, internet is gone and database is not accessible and stuff like that. Of course, if we talk about a business and stuff like that, then with such situation, you lose a lot of potential money if you're also earning money with some services that you provide based on your IT infrastructure, maybe some store where you, I don't know, sell some goods, or some web page, or some publicly available services that are tied with some databases and stuff like that. If you don't have a monitoring, and if you're just relying on some engineer who will notice this, then of course there will be situations when, I don't know, somebody leaves the office at Friday evening, then comes back at a Monday morning and notice like, oops, we have like 10 emails saying that database is not available. And of course we lost a lot of sales, money, clients in a weekend with these 2 days, simply because our services were not available. We did not know that. So this is the benefit of a monitoring, which allows you to set up this monitoring across all your IT infrastructure and being aware of everything that is happening. And this is very important because, well, data doesn't matter if we talk about IT company or monitoring or servers, whatever. Information is value, and you can always utilize information in your favor. So with using monitoring, we're sort of collecting all sort of information about our infrastructure. And it's also important that, I don't know why really, but when before this, all the pandemic hit, so we were also traveling quite a lot of for different conferences and stuff like that. And many people think specifically about the Zabbix. So, hey, this is that Zabbix, that network monitoring tool, right? So most of the guys who have heard about Zabbix but have never used it think that it is strictly network monitoring tool for SNMP protocol. for SNMP traps to monitor some Cisco, MikroTik, or whatever else. But it's not only that, right? You can monitor absolutely, even right now, like with the release of the 6.0, you can easily monitor all your infrastructure, may those be the services, applications, desktops, some I don't know, manufacturing hardware, some freezers in the supermarkets, just to make sure that this something doesn't go wrong and the temperature doesn't drop, which will cause some food to become bad, and I know somebody will buy it and will be unhappy for this solution. So you can get all of this information with a monitoring product, software like Zabbix in this case, or any other basically, and use this data to be informed when something bad happens. Also, not only rely on the problems themselves, but when you just receive the data for last 30 minutes, last hour, one day, is basically nothing. But if you monitor a lot of the correlated data for, let's say, multiple years, and you have this, maybe not a history, maybe the trends to save some disk space, it surely gives you some wider view on everything that is happening in a company, especially like if you are implementing some changes. I don't know, you've changed some part of your software, added some patch, maybe moved from the local hardware servers to the cloud. And when you have the scope for multiple years, you can see that, okay, like our total used disk space was like this, and then it went up when we did this migration. And maybe our CPU load was always like spiking high when the web page was experiencing like 500 concurrent users, and then we added this patch and we see that same amount of the users, but CPU load goes lower. So we can use that to actually see how beneficial were these changes in our company. Some new procedures, some patches to the software, changing the hardware, maybe adding some new network engineers, adding DBAs, and that actually plays a big role. And yeah, let's go through the questions. So is it possible to upgrade from the latest 5.2 to the 6.0, or do I have to go to the 5.4 first? Straight to the 6.0. Doesn't matter. Even if you have a 3.0, you can go straight to the 6.0. This appearance started from, I may be wrong, but I think Zabbix 2.2, maybe 2.0. Before that, there were upgrade scripts, and then you had to manually go like I don't even remember, 1.6, 1.8, 2.0, and stuff like that. And starting with the Zabbix 2.2, there is automated upgrade, so you just download the recent 6.0 and run the upgrade. But of course, it's still very complicated. You really must go and check all the release notes for all the versions of the Zabbix to be aware, because of course, if you're upgrading from the 2.2 for 6.0, that will going to be absolutely different product, and you will not recognize it at all. So it's beneficial to do the reading and check the release notes and stuff like that. Love you, Dmitry. Your videos always help. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you. Thank you for good words. And yeah, that's basically the purpose, to create some videos and evergreen content to give the tools for Zabbix users and also Zabbix beginners who are just starting this monitoring path. Probably not the right place if you expect me just dropping like random custom created templates once per week, but I'm trying again give you those tools so that you'll be able to create those templates on your own and do all of this configuration on your own. Can I use telemetry and Zabbix? Yes, and right now, since the release of the Zabbix 5. Again, don't want to be wrong, 5.2 or no. Wait, I think it was even the 4.4 when the throttling was added. So for those cases when you need to monitor something very fast, I'm talking like more frequent than 1 second. So normally like this could put quite a big load on your Zabbix, but if you have a throttling, then you can offload your Zabbix server. And I have a video about throttling, so I'm not going to talk a lot about it here. Just Google Zabbix throttling preprocessing. I think you will find my video. It will definitely help for telemetry monitoring. How much resources in comparison to maintain Zabbix server should be enough for proxy? Let's assume I have 1,000 items per second and plan 4 till 10 proxies. In general, like amount and count of items, hosts, triggers, whatever else, doesn't mean anything. All the performance requirements are heavily tied to the new values per second, because simple thinking, you could have 1,000 items and 1 hour update interval for each of them, or you could have 1,000 items and 1 second update interval on each of them. And of course, those will be absolutely different systems. 1,000 items, I don't even know how much NVPS that could probably generate, but usually, like, I would say something around, like, for small installations, 4 cores and 8 gigs for the Zabbix server, and for database, it's usually recommended to have like 8 cores and 16 gigs, and of course properly tuned database configuration file. Partitioning, highly welcomed, especially on the Zabbix server, not on the proxies. On the proxies, performance-wise, better don't use SQLite. SQLite is good for like fast deploying, but it has a performance cap for around 1,000 till 1,500 new values per second. And then you move on from there. But basically, the biggest mistake usually the users make is they don't tune neither the database, not the Zabbix server configuration files, and this leads to like, hey, the Zabbix is very bad software. We have 32 gigs of memory, and it's still like full of slow queries, and everything is delayed. Yeah, you may have like 32 gigs of memory in your database server, but database config file is default, so it's not utilized at all, right? So that's very important. Thanks about the upgrade pad. One more question. I have more than 20 proxies running. Can I continue monitoring after upgrading the server before upgrading the proxies? I am not able to let them update at the same time. Basically, with this upgrade procedure, so getting agents out of this list, like agents are backwards compatible. When you're doing an upgrade, you don't need to worry about them at all. Server, proxy, and frontend, and also JMX, Java Gateway, must run the same major version. So if you upgrade to the Zabbix 6.0, you must have also proxies in a Zabbix 6.0. But I don't want to give you false promises about a 6.0 version specifically, because that's not official. And it's not like documented as a best step to do. But previously in the 4 dot something and 5 dot something, if you upgraded the server to the 6.0 and proxies, let's say, remain on a 5.4, they continue to collect the data. They continue to send this data to the server, and server accepts it. The only thing that is not working is the configuration exchange. So if during this time when you have server 6.0 and the proxies 5.4, you add some new items, that part will not going to work with the proxies. If you just leave the proxies as they are, most likely they will still continue to collect existing items and pass them to the servers. But again, no promises about if this works in a 6.0. Previously it did on the previous versions. Yeah. I mean 1,000 new items per second, so probably mean 1,000 new values per second. Then for the Zabbix server, it could be a good start to have 4 cores, 8 gigs, and well, actually the same setup for an 8 could also work for the database, but then you do have to work on a partitioning, and depends on your hard drives, because hard drives are very important for the database thing. What is the best setting for the housekeeping? Have about 150 values per second, and database sitting at 7 gigs 3 months in. 7 gigs is a pretty small database. For productions, it is usually terabytes, 1, 2, 3, and even more. So 7 gigs, that's absolutely nothing. Best settings, if you mean like the Housekeeper settings in the Zabbix server configuration file, default settings. Don't touch them. Run the housekeeper once per hour as it is in the default. Max history delete, leave as it is in the default. If you talk about housekeeper settings in administration, general, housekeeping, then for the events, it's important to keep only triggers. Internals are used only upon the creation. Network discovery is just for the network discovery, and same for active registration. But in the recent releases, like that's the default setting to keep triggers, I think, for 1 year and everything else for 1 day. Sessions out at log, those are not that heavy tables. And as for the history, heavy depends from your management. The only thing is that in those cases when your management says like, hey, we need to keep 5 years of the history, try to convince them that it's not actually a great idea, because okay, I understand that you want to keep an insight about the collected data, but better go with trends. Trends will also give you full insight for those 5 or even 10 years, but it will save you like hundreds and hundreds of gigs of the disk space. Right, so better trends than the raw history. Raw history usually is good for like 3 months, 6 months, something around that. Okay, so we have some greetings to some colleagues probably. We plan to keep data for 1 year. We had a server with 90 gigs database that had a major DB crash, so we had to start from scratch. That's why you need backups. As simple as that. Yeah, if you don't want to make backups of those 90 gigs like daily or weekly, then just skip the history tables. There are 5 of them. History and other 4 that start with history and underscore, log, character, text, I think. I don't even remember from my heart. And 2 trends. So skip those and back up everything else. Upgrade it to SSDs. That's the thing to do. And thank you. Thank you. So let's get back to this one. Okay, so the first one, why do we need monitoring? I think everybody understood, and I'm sure that everybody who are here already know why do you need monitoring. So let's leave this this bulletin for I don't know, some new viewers that will actually watch this live stream later as a recording. So paid versus open source. I don't know, I wanted to add this this question or topic to talk about, and that's always a choice for every company, and probably it's going to be made somewhere like higher than just the regular engineer level. But what are the most common differences? And I'm not like not even an expert and not even skilled or knowledgeable in some other monitoring solutions, so I'm not going to say that one is better than another, but how it usually is. Paid versions are easier to use. They're more convenient. They're probably something like installing software on a Windows machine. It's like next, finish. So everything that you may need is already available. You don't need to do any configuration. Just I don't know, specify that I want to monitor this, and there you go. You start to receive the data. Maybe you even have some triggers already up, and the pricing is pretty big, because usually like you pay per monitored device, right? And think about, like, again, if we're talking hundreds, thousands of devices, and if for one device you have to pay like $15 or something, that's crazy a lot of money. If we talk about an open source, then of course everything's free, right? Go grab it. Just, I know, go Zabbix.com, the green download button that is hidden behind my camera, and download, use it. All the functionality that the Zabbix currently have without any limitations. There are no paid versions, no enterprise versions, no like hidden fan versions and stuff like that. Everything is absolutely free. Functionality, usually I think it's usually even wider than those paid solutions, because paid solution gives you an option to monitor a lot of things out of the box without any configuration complexities, but it's limited on what's included. So yeah, you may monitor this machine. You will get 50 of these metrics. If you want that 51, well, sorry, we don't have it. Working with an open source solution, specifically with a Zabbix, it's extremely flexible. You can monitor even some customized applications that you just created within your company only for your purpose. And let's say some other monitoring software vendors don't even know about such software and server existence. So with an open source solution, you most likely will have a chance to actually do this customization, adapt it based for your needs, create those custom monitoring. If, let's say, SNMP is not working for us, SNMP traps as well, it's not possible to install an agent, and it's not a web page, and we cannot use ODBC, you can always write some Python scripts or whatever and just fork them with Zabbix and collect the data. Of course, this might give a question like, why do I need a monitoring tool if I am collecting everything with scripts, right? So script is doing the job, it's just passing the data to the monitoring tool, then why do I need it? And I think the simple answer is like to have everything in one place. Of course, it's possible to have software A that does database monitoring, software B that does cloud monitoring, software C that monitors our desktops, and software D that monitors some vehicle park of our company. But having these 4, 5, 6, 7 softwares will also require to have 4, 5, 6 teams who will work together. And it will be very hard to correlate some ongoing issues within these 5 different softwares. However, with the Zabbix, you have a chance to have everything within one monitoring software, one front end, one dashboard. You can have your network devices, database server, your main web page, humidity of the flower on your desktop table, and I don't know, whatever else. Status of the coffee machine in the kitchen, and the status of the printer, and some telemetry data, and again the temperature in the freezer and stuff like that. Everything within one single solution where you have one single team working on it, one NOC team, one administrator, okay, maybe multiple guys with the same skill set. So I personally think that open source gives you this flexibility to adopt the product as per your needs, and it's free. Most likely the company will have to invest more in the engineers who will be actually working with this monitoring solution and everything that's around it. But well, I personally think that it's worth to more invest in the people rather than some just software solution that may change their policy or payment policy or whatever else after a year or 2 or 3. Server choice. So pretty simple one. Like what I was thinking about is like hardware or virtual machine. Specifically talking about a Zabbix, doesn't matter at all. If you have all of your infrastructure somewhere in a cloud, spin up your Zabbix in a cloud. If you have some physical data center with a physical machines, spin up your Zabbix on a physical machine. Again, it doesn't matter at all in terms of like performance or whatever. There may be some benefits, like in a cloud, you can do just a snapshot of the virtual machine and then just restore if something happens, which may even be easier than backupping database weekly or monthly or whatever else. But no requirements, no suggestions, and no like actual performance-wise benefits from one or another. What to monitor, what departments should be actually included. I think this is like a big problem, and not only in the companies that are just starting with the monitoring, but also in the companies that have a monitoring but don't really have like a goal or idea how it should work, what should be the procedure of onboarding all the IT infrastructure for the monitoring and stuff like that. So when we start the monitoring, we need to decide what we will do. Like, we have 5 computers here. Do we need to monitor them or not? Do we need to monitor those servers or network devices here? Hey, there's some access point that is used only for a public Wi-Fi, should we add it to monitoring or not? And I personally think that you should add like whatever that you have. If you have it in the office and it's used by something, even if it's a public Wi-Fi, if you could get a notification when something went wrong, instead of like your customers coming at your office and being sad for a week that the Wi-Fi doesn't work, I think like it's easy to understand which option is better. But what is the problem here, especially like in a big corporation? So let's say you start to work as a monitoring engineer, and I'm sure that many of you face this problem, and you're a monitoring engineer. There is your Zabbix installation. In this case, you have to monitor all our company, but of course it has multiple departments, and most of the stuff is those departments are responsible for it. So you need to monitor these Oracle databases, but you don't have any access to them. You don't have any idea what databases actually are running. There are some productions or development or some test databases and stuff like that. You don't actually even have an idea how the Oracle database works and what the hell is it, what the metrics are important for it. Okay, it's easier if we have a native template, if we just let's say go to the GitHub Zabbix. I will just do that because I don't have a front end in my screen right now. So templates, databases, let's say Oracle ODBC. Good, I have official template. It has some items, some low-level discoveries, some triggers, so I just apply it. But what if I don't have this template? How do I even figure out what do I need to monitor? And this is the biggest pain, in my opinion, that everybody needs to understand that it's not as easy as throwing somebody as a monitoring engineer and saying you need to monitor everything. It is always very tight collaboration and working together with some other departments to, first of all, configure this monitoring of Oracle database in this case, or any other service or application, and on a second hand decide about what metrics do you actually need. In the perfect world, how I see it's that Zabbix engineer, monitoring engineer has, let's say, no idea about Oracle, and he has a meeting with this database department, and they say that we need to monitor this. The monitoring engineer should just tell them, okay, we have an option to use ODBC, and database guys will most likely know what ODBC is. We have an option to install a Zabbix agent which can perform this and that. We can create triggers, we can create a frequency like this and like that. And now you guys tell, so which sounds better for you? Do you want to go with the agent way or ODBC or something else? Maybe there's some API. Maybe there's some central server where we can read information about all of the smaller servers from. And tell me, like, how do you want this to look like? What metrics do you actually want to receive? What should be the update intervals? And no, like having everything once per second is not good. And work together, like what do we do and how do we do? And yeah, this probably touched about also like who is responsible for the monitoring. So not only monitoring engineer, it is very painful case if you are a monitoring engineer in some company and of course you're responsible about a Zabbix and stuff like that. And let's say if you're also responsible that to configure a SNMP configuration on a Cisco device, to configure ODBC connections on Oracle database, to create some PowerShell script. Okay, maybe creating the script could be this part for the engineer. But you understand what I mean. So there should always be some sort of help from related departments and engineers, and they should always provide this insight and assistance on configuring everything and deciding what metrics actually should be collected. Proxies were not, and this usually this is not even coming as a question, because if, let's say, small company, again, let's say 100 employees, 100 computers and stuff like that, decide to deploy monitoring, let's again say it as Zabbix, and they like think, okay, we have just one local office, which means that we don't need a proxies. But it's not always like that simple. The proxy is not always meant for some distributed monitoring. Yes, the main idea is to deploy the proxy in, say, New York, some other proxy in Germany, other proxy in China, Japan, Riga, Latvia, whatever else. But not only, even if you have this one headquarter big, and proxy doesn't cost you anything. You can deploy proxy in a Raspberry Pi if you're installing like small, if you're monitoring small environment with this proxy. So you can even have a proxies for each of your departments. Let's say proxy for networking stuff, proxy for database monitoring, proxy for workstations of our employees, if you need that, of course. And the greatest benefit of the proxies is that it's going to offload your Zabbix server. So instead of like adding performance and adding some hardware, CPUs, memory, disks to your Zabbix server in a database, maybe it's enough to add like 1, 2, or 3 proxies. And also about some cases when, you know, the maximal timeout value in a Zabbix is 30 seconds. Like no matter what you're going to do, you will not get it past like 30 seconds unless, of course, you change the source code. But the higher the value, the worse it actually is. Because thinking like simply, so all the monitoring is done with the internal processes. Let's say the pollers that are doing SNMP stuff, as example. One poller is capable to collect, let's say, I don't know, I'm guessing like 50 values per second, if everything is fine. But if the device is very slow and it takes 10 seconds to actually receive this memory utilization from the device, the poller is simply waiting. It establishes the connection, polls for the memory, and then waits. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, gets the value, closes the connection. Instead, during these 10 seconds, poller would be able to collect 500 metrics from fast devices. So instead of like ramping this timeout parameter in all of your Zabbix server, just because you have 5 or 10 slow devices may not be a best idea. Maybe you want to, again, separate these slow parts in a proxy. Okay, we know that these things are running slow. We're fine with that. We know the consequences, but we are not going to put all our Zabbix server under load because of that. So we will actually create a proxy and move all the slow monitoring to the proxy. That could also be an option. And of course, all the benefits that just proxies have, a database, if there's some network communications, you don't lose the data. Small instances, again, could be some Raspberry Pi or some very small virtual machine. And it scales, like if more devices are added to your infrastructure and you need to add more, then just add more. If there's like a lot more, then you can always add the hardware specs for the proxy itself and ramp up the memory and the CPU and stuff like that, and add like thousands hosts, 2, 5, 10,000 hosts, and do the monitoring. Also, like if something goes wrong, database corrupted on a proxy and it crashes and everything is bad. Delete the database, recreate it, just create database, Zabbix, character set, stuff like that. Restart the proxy, it connects to the server, grabs the recent configuration, begins the monitoring. That's it. And also Zabbix roadmap. For those who have not watched the previous video that was released this Monday, was about the roadmap of the Zabbix 6.2. So go check it out if you haven't seen it. High availability, performance, and scalability. Proxies to provide automatic load balancing and high availability. So it is on a roadmap for the 6.2, and this, of course, will be also a huge improvement to user proxies, right? So user proxies and offload your Zabbix server, and this will provide this horizontal scaling, which currently is not really working with a Zabbix. So you can scale vertically, but not horizontally right now. And when we introduce the load balancing, this will, of course, become more convenient and easier. So how do you think, are there any other key things, bulletins to talk about in this implementation? We have, I don't know, roughly 20 minutes left. I don't know, the previous stream was basically 1 hour. I was sort of thinking do the same for this one. So we can start the actual Q&A session. right? So if you have any questions about this topic, anything else, maybe not even related to the Zabbix itself, but whatever else, sure, write just in the chat, and we'll try to answer them. We can also talk about some future plans about new videos. So as I said, in the Monday we have a upgrade video, upgrade to the Zabbix 6.0. And then I actually don't know. Probably we should talk about high availability. That could be a good video. The business service monitoring would be good, but that will actually require from me to try it out first of all, because honestly I have no idea how it works and what are the best practices and what could be the potential mistakes working with that. So that will require from me a couple of evenings to understand and be able to deliver some information to you. Getting to the question, so about what to monitor, we use the minimums, what we need to monitor for our customers: disk space, CPU, memory, and some critical services. Well, this minimum, like disk space, CPU, and memory, I personally again think that it's fine if it's like really your decision and you made a research on it. So you know that, okay, there's really nothing else that we need to collect on this. There's nothing else that we could monitor, and our customers could benefit from the stuff that we're monitoring it. Again, simple example like disk space, CPU, memory. Let's say if we're talking about the Windows Defender. Windows Defender monitoring, I remember because I created a template myself like 2 years ago when I just started this channel, and I think I have still a video. I must have a video about it. So you could monitor, let's say, when was the last this Windows Defender database updated? Are there any vulnerabilities found? When was the last scan? And stuff like that, which is sort of, again, simple thing. There's no native template for Windows Defender, I think. And it could be added. And those are 8 or 10 items. Monitoring is done through the WMI. So it's very light, very simple. And there's probably like way more things than only Windows Defender monitoring that still could be added and bring this additional value to your customers, right? So one thing when you're monitoring for your own, and the second thing when you're doing this for your customers, and you can just improve and say, hey, we added like this and that, and right now every month we will also send you a report about this information. So you can use the data and apply some changes or stuff like that is always very great. We have now the 37 proxies monitoring 7.5 thousand devices, 29,000 items, and use only 75 new values per second. Are you sure? Because I don't know how many what could be the average update interval if you're having 75 new values per second with 29,000 items? That doesn't sound real. Running smooth because we have low rates at all our templates, running it for 1.5 year and using a database with less than 20 gigs. Well, if you have update intervals for like, I cannot do the math right now in my mind, probably around like, I don't know, not frequent at all, then it could be real. And of course, this is also like important that Zabbix is forgiving mistakes on a small installations. If you have the 75 NVPS system, you can install everything following all the worst practices in the world, and it still will be running fine. You can install the Zabbix on a Raspberry Pi, apply to MySQL, not tune the config at all, have 1 gig of memory, and it's still going to run fine, because 75 NVPS, that's absolutely nothing. When you have 20,000 NVPS, one small mistake in your configuration, wrong parameter for file system or database config file, or wrong timeout setting in specific environment can cause you like bad performance for all the monitoring setup. So yeah, scale is always very important. How to set up Zabbix incremental database backup? I would not even do that. Yeah, well, why do you need that? That's even more dangerous if you have something went south and you continue to override that backup with the new data. Just make a full database backup. Again, do, let's say, once per month, full database backup, and once per week, configuration data. Configuration data will probably take, well, depending on installation, a couple of gigs. So the backup itself could probably run like a couple of minutes. If you're running like virtualized RDS or whatever, then just take a snapshot and it's done. But yeah, incremental database backups are not good for the Zabbix, I think. How are the triggers replaced in the new ID services? Again, I think they are not replaced. I'm not sure. I've not even tried the new business service monitoring thing yet in Zabbix at all. So I don't want to give you a false information. I'm sure there still are triggers. Otherwise, like, how could Zabbix even know when there is a problem or not? So I'm sure the triggers are still there and they're not replaced. As they want to pay for monitoring, we can add it. Everything comes with a cost. Of course, but maybe they have no idea that you can actually monitor it, so you can give them a candy for like, okay, this is a month of giving, so we're giving you this Windows Defender monitoring, and for the next month, if you want to keep it, after you've seen this beautiful report, and you've seen that you have this Andy developer who has turned off the Windows Defender and his computer has not been scanned for the last year, then maybe they will be willing to pay some additional money for this monitoring. We have overrated our server, separated server and database, also using PostgreSQL with a timescale. Separated server and database is definitely a best practice. If we are just starting a new installation of the Zabbix, and I would even say like the scale doesn't matter here. It's always a good thing to have the server and the database on a separate machines. Again, physical, virtual, RDS doesn't matter, but have a database somewhere outside. Otherwise, what could happen, like something goes against out with the Zabbix and it puts a big load on the database, and if the database is on the same server with the Zabbix server, then also the Zabbix server suffers from this load, and then we have just this loop of the performance issues. So it's always recommended to have a database outside of your Zabbix server. Running a front end, so Apache or Nginx together with the Zabbix server is absolutely fine. That's going to work. Most devices are polled once per 5 minutes. Disk space twice an hour. Once per 5 minutes, 29,000 items would still create more new values per second, I'm sure. So I don't want to be wrong, but let's say 29,000 items, right? Let's say if we are monitoring even like with one item once per hour, that would be 29,000 new values per second, right? I'm not completely stupid, I think. So it should be like either you're wrong with the new values per second, or with something else. Also, maybe you've fallen under the idea that the stuff that you see in the dashboard, which that system information widget or something like that, which says like the Zabbix server running or not, it also displays new values per second. That may be 75, but it doesn't have to be the actual new values processed by your Zabbix server. So that is roughly calculated based on the database, based on the update intervals. But as example, I don't remember right now, I think active checks are not counted in it at all. Or were it? I don't, like traps, definitely. SNMP traps are not counted in that setting. So if you want to see the actual new values per second, then you need to check monitoring, graphs, Zabbix server host, Zabbix server performance. Okay, thanks. I couldn't find them, but tags are there. Yeah, so we'll see. Is it okay to go with full database backup while Zabbix is running? Yes, just do it properly. If you are using don't use MySQL dump. Read about the difference between the logical and the physical backup of the database. Use like Percana extra backup. MariaDB right now have their own backup utility. I don't remember how it's called. And with Postgres, everything is fine. With Oracle, I have no idea. MySQL dump is bad. MySQL dump works for some Q&A environments to do some small backups and stuff like that, but not for a production database backup. And if for some reason you still want to do the MySQL dump, then mandatory add a parameter -- single -- transaction to not lock the tables while you're running the upgrade. Not the upgrade, but the backup. Maybe it's the required server performance, the issue. So required server performance, actually, the graph, not the widget, but the graph shows the actual required server performance processed by the Zabbix server. Maybe there's a queue. Maybe you are saying that it's running 75 on VPS, but actually there are some performance issues and 20,000 of the values are somewhere lagging behind. I'm not sure. Active checks are not counted. Yeah, so there we go. Yeah, that's purely counted from the database entry update interval field. And as example, like the log monitoring, you could set it like 5 seconds for a best practice, but it doesn't mean that you will receive a value every 5 seconds. That's why that's only calculation, and you should rely on the actual data in the graph, Zabbix server performance. I think we run out of the questions. Come on, give me more. What could we talk about? We have roughly 8 more minutes. Workshops. This week, the Zabbix has workshops, starting with Tuesday, I think. And today there are also 2 workshops, and tomorrow there's going to be 2 workshops. So let's check which ones. I think it was here, so workshop week. And tomorrow is 25, so tomorrow is the workshop about securing your Zabbix instance with a user roles, permissions, and password complexity, and security by design using the Vault for Vault Secret in a Zabbix 6.0 LTS. So basically the security related topics. If you're interested in those, then you can always sign up. I think they start, yeah, there's the time. Yeah, so that's probably going to be interesting. And the next 6.2 will have high availability for proxy. How is the balance of proxy now? Right now, there's no balance. Easy as that. There's just one single proxy installation. You can configure high availability with PCS carsync stuff. No load balancing for the proxies right now. Maybe you could do some witchcraft with some third-party tools to try to load balance the traffic, but I'm certainly sure that it would cause more issues than good. So don't do that. Don't do that. Better wait for the Zabbix 6.2. Number of processed numeric float values per second, 8.57 numbers of processing unsigned. And text. Well, okay, I will believe you. 29,000 items with 50 Mbps. That does sound very strange. But I will believe you. Again, if you have a Discord, I have a link in the description of the video. You can join the Discord and, I don't know, maybe send some screenshot. I'm not sure for how long it will remain here after the stream. But, yeah, we can have a couple of sentences about that. So I think we need to wrap this up. The only thing, again, like I see that people already start to leave. How do you like these live streams at all? Is it interesting? Is it valuable? Because that's the most painful question for me. Like it's not hard for me to make them. It may be hard to figure out some topic to talk about. If you give me some questions, it's definitely easier. But yeah, the most important is that if it is interesting for you, then we can continue to do that. Probably, I'm thinking around like 1 or 2 times per month. So the schedule of the videos basically remains the same, which is every Monday there's a new video, and probably like twice per month we could have a stream Thursday. Right now there are more videos just because of the release of the 6.0. I really wanted to deploy the installation. Yeah. So do you have a recommendation for what to use to monitor server room temperatures, humidity, and other stuff? There should be some sensors in the server room normally. If not, then you can always just purchase them. They will most likely have either SNMP or IPMI. And the servers themselves actually should have IPMI for temperature monitoring. And Zabbix does support IPMI, so you can do that. Basically anything that can report you with the temperature, right? So it depends like how expensive sensor do you want to get. Either that will be some like known vendor, or maybe just cheap stuff that hopefully does the job and doesn't die after a week. We'll send it by Discord later. Okay, sure, no worries. I check it time to time. Yep, thank you. That's the biggest. That's the best for me, that hearing that this is useful for you guys, having those likes and subscribers grow, that's the best we could wish. Great idea, very helpful. Thanks for the live stream, was interesting, learning some small things which I know don't have to figure out anymore. Where I can download Zabbix 5.4 documentation in PDF so we can print it. Download documentation, I have no idea if that's possible right now. I don't know. Maybe guys in the comments comment section can let you know, because Zabbix recently changed the engine for the documentation. Is the Markdown right now, and I don't know, control print. No, control print downloads just the selected page. So maybe it's not even possible. I'm not sure. You'll have to do the research for that. Thanks for the live stream. You're welcome. Thank you guys for joining. Again, I was not expecting to see that many of you today. So it's very, very, very great to see you here. And I will try to give you a notice when we plan the next stream, which will probably be after like 2 weeks or something. So follow me on, I don't know, all the places where you can. Discord, LinkedIn, Reddit, Zabbix, subreddit. And usually like a couple days before the stream, I will put the link so you can set the reminders, save the date and stuff like that. And we'll definitely meet again and talk about the different stuff. So thank you guys once again for watching, and we'll see you later. Don't forget to come the Monday and check the upgrade to the 6.0 video. So thank you guys and goodbye. Let me find where's end the stream. Okay, goodbye.